Their glares were darts in my side. The people on that eternal plane ride stared at my family as if we were animals, their eyes glinting with fear, amusement, indifference, and worst of all, pity. We had deviated sharply from my sister Elizabeth's routine, a potential disaster for someone with autism. That disaster was now playing out loudly. As Elizabeth screamed, cried, and lashed out, the tension mounted. Mothers pulled their children close. I hated being on the other side of those stairs, but I hated it even more for Elizabeth. Moments of conflict like this were often difficult for me. I was a sensitive kid, so hearing insults and curse words often made me angry. But after 3 years of high school, I became desensitized to most bad words. All but one. When the word retarded is tossed around as a diss, I physically recoil. My life experience tells me that that connotation cannot be further from the truth. I've watched Elizabeth sort through the emotions of typical people better than most typical people can. Day after day, she tries harder at life than anyone I know. It is the belittlement of people with special needs like my sister that has inspired me to take a stand. Ironically, it was barely verbal Elizabeth who taught me how to use my own voice for good. In my childhood, I often found it easier to comply with aggressors rather than to stand up for myself. That is, until one day when I heard a kid slide next to my sister on the school bus and hiss insults at her, including the R word. This boy was taking advantage of my sister and using her as a defenseless punching bag for his repressed emotions. For once, I stood with no fear shaking my bones, and I planted my hand firmly on his shoulder. Retarded doesn't mean stupid. My sister is smart and caring, and it doesn't do you any good picking on her. So please, stop. As he scurried back to his seat, I felt strong. I hadn't stooped to his level by retaliating, and somehow that felt right. When I climbed back to my seat, my head was swirling with realizations. There is a power in calling out injustice. I have a voice. As years passed, I became more convinced that the truth can stand alone. That insults, commonplace though they may be in high school, derail us from intelligent conversation and block us from really understanding one another. I continue to fight ignorance about the harmfulness of the R word by simply educating my peers. Whether it be teaching strangers about ableism through my school's Girl Up chapter, or simply reminding passerby of the implications of their words. My crusade against hateful comments pays off every day in my community. I live for the moments of social progress I see in our toxic world. It's like when the older sister in me lights up when Elizabeth defies expectations. With love and empathy as our shield, I have a feeling that those darts can't hurt us anymore. Thank you.